Nancy says that chicken shit Kouri isn't testifying. Her right, but yes, folks, we just found out today that Kouri Richins is not only not going to testify, but they're not going to put any form of defense whatsoever. And I'm here this evening here in Tennessee to explain to you my views of why the defense did not put on a case. Let me just say up front, it is absolutely unfathomable. It doesn't register with me why the defense did not at least hire somebody that deals with drug overdose or anything like that on the stand. It's just absolutely, it's not ineffective assistance of counsel. Maybe it had to do with the budget. I don't know what the hell it was, but good evening to all of you. Glad you're here. Thank y'all. For those that have not been watching the Kouri Richins trial, folks, you know I'm just trying to give my thoughts, my views. What's interesting about it is I really thought, because didn't the defense attorney say that Kouri Richins was going to testify? Didn't she say that more than once? And then she also said in open court that they were going to have an expert come in. That didn't happen either. So I don't know if that was strategy on their part. I don't know what the hell that was, but it didn't happen. And tomorrow they are going to go over jury instructions, and the jury will come back on Monday, and we will move forward to get what, y'all? A little justice through understanding. So I want to start this out with a reminder. OKJ has had the community wall for 6 years now, and I always seek all the rays out. Okay, I seek them out on the community wall to create the content, because it can't be just about what OKJ talks about. And I had put on the community wall this screenshot of Kouri Richins celebrating after Eric Richins died. What was it, 1 or 2 days after he's dead? I think it was the day after. She is celebrating with some family members in her kitchen and all that. Go to the community wall. Look at that picture of Kouri Richins. Look at her face and tell me this woman is all tore up. You know, she was wrapped around that toilet throwing up when she found out that her loving husband had died. Give me a break. So anyway, I put on there, you know, hey, who the hell has a celebration after their spouse is dead over any damn reason? I mean, we're not even talking about a celebration of life. We're talking about a closing on a real estate thing, the Midway Mansion there. And I said, who does it? And I got the comments, and I want to and this is going to dovetail, just bear with me, all right? This is going to dovetail into what we're going to go into. Bonnie Leamos says, about the celebration, says, yeah, this is absolutely insane. I lost my 24-year-old brother from an auto accident. I was 27 at the time, and we were super close. I was in shock. I couldn't even eat. I had constant breakdowns, and it took me a year just to accept that he wasn't coming back. Blows my mind how so many people close to him and celebrated 1 or 2 days after that she would celebrate whatever she was celebrating, and we know it was over the real estate thing. Just 2 days after his death, Eric Richins' death. My brother's viewing. I sat in the back hiding with a photo of him. I did not want the vision of him in a casket entering my head. And a party? Kouri Richins is having a party? Never. Fancy Nancy says, this is insane. Totally unacceptable. Rebecca Helt says, I was in bed a month when I lost my husband. Mom on the case says Lori Vallow did it too, and y'all recall. Lori Vallow had the pool party. Very interesting. Again, we will dovetail, and then we will pivot again. Steven says, so super weird. My husband is my best friend. I would literally lose my mind. If something ever happened to him, let alone be like, oh, cool, let's have a party. 24 hours after his body was removed from the house. And the friends, quote unquote, friends that partied and drank too, y'all are suspect. And not true friends, because what the actual heck? Lady Ava says, that's just scary and so very sad. Eric Jasper says, well, if you are Lori Daybell, you do it the very same day. And I really wanted to hear Kouri Richins go on the stand, folks. I'm sure you did as well. But let's just be clear. We all here on this channel, Rays, know it. We wanted to hear Lori Hooker Daybell go on the stand as well, and we were not given that at all. And I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, wow. You know, I mean, people are bringing things out about how they feel about her celebrating and all that, and we'll get to today's news and further on, and I will explain to you OKJ's laser focus and application of this case on the fact that Kouri Richins is not testifying and the defense has not decided to bring anyone on the stand at all. But Lori Vallow was 46 years old, y'all, when she got arrested. Kouri Richins was 33 years old when she was arrested. Both had 3 children. Both murdered their husbands, if you want to believe that, and I do now. Remember me telling you, I think it was this last stream or the stream before I was going to wait, but there was no defense put up. And from what the judge said today in open court, he said there was enough evidence to go back with the jury. There was not a single charge that Kouri Richins has been charged with that could be wiped away. There could be no mistrial, nothing. But both murdered their husbands, Kouri and Lori. Of course, we know Lori Hooker Daybell had her husband shot. She might as well have been pulling the trigger, and some believe she even helped Alex pull the trigger. But Kouri Richins poisoned her husband with a lethal dose of fentanyl, at least 5 times the amount. But do you remember? Do you remember when Lori crushed up pills in Charles's drink? Married to Eric Richins for 9 years. Lori was married to Charles Vallow for 13 years. Now, you have to think about that. Lori was 46, Kouri was 33. Both of them obviously had affairs, but with two totally different lovers. Chad Daybell, the sling blade serial killer MF that he is, that nasty ass man that he was lumpy dumpy, he couldn't write books, he was a piece of crap. And then you had Kouri in an affair with Josh Grossman, who, whatever side you want to fall on, seemed like a decent man, besides the fact that he made the decision to get into an affair with a married woman, okay? Both had mental health issues. We know Lori Hooker Daybell was diagnosed, Judge Boyce said it, hyper-religiosity with narcissistic features. I think it's a lot worse than that. Y'all know me. I say she was demon possessed on top of it. But then again, Kouri, she, absolutely was taken serial. And I explained to all y'all the different, whether it was bipolar, whatever it was, we don't have a definitive answer on why Kouri Richins was taken serial. And let's not forget that a little bit of that was in Eric's toxicology as well. I don't believe for a second Eric Richins took some of Kouri's serial. I think she added it in because she knew it had sedative type of features in it, and I think that's why she did it. But nevertheless, Lori, at some point, Lori Hooker Daybell, she was a hairdresser, but then she went from that to being, a pageant queen, stay-at-home mom. She did stuff, she worked at the temple or did all this stuff at church, but she didn't work. She didn't work at all. And Kouri Richins, on the other hand, was a real estate agent. And, maybe at some point Kouri Richins was heading toward some success until she decided to screw herself going through all the financial shit that she did. She had this knack for buying homes and flipping them, but then she went ballistic in terms of borrowing money with high percentage rates and all of this stuff. She was up to her freaking elbows, knees, chin, the whole 9 yards in debt. She absolutely was a good real estate agent, but she absolutely did not know how to deal with the financial aspects of any of that. Canyon Jam says her shirt in court today was the same color as the Chin's death row prison suit. Very interesting, Canyon Jam. And only someone as yourself who can look at the fabrics and the colors and all of the sewing involved could ascertain such a situation. Both loved money. I mean, there's no denying that. These are not opinions. I mean, it's very, very apparent that Lori Hooker Daybell loved money and Kouri Richins loved money, and they both gave off this aura that they were so prestigious and all of this. It's like grandiose thinking. Both of them had that in their mental health issues as far as OKJs were concerned. We're both Mormon. I never, ever got that impression of Kouri Richins. I know Eric Richins grew up in a Mormon home. And when looking at Eric Richins and Kouri Richins' life, we won't go into detail too much about it, y'all, but folks, it was not anything like the hooker, okay? But there's one little caveat to that. We'll get to that as well, which reminds me that Kouri might have absolutely felt Mormonism. We'll get to that here soon. Kouri lived in Utah, and Lori visited Utah. Y'all remember her and Melanie Gibb, and she had to go to the sites so she could Lori could feel all powerful and all that. We see nothing in this trial at all about the temple, anything having to do with Mormonism whatsoever in this trial. Now, could there be something Mormon-like in this? Perhaps, but maybe the state decided they weren't going to go there. You know, folks, it's very interesting. You got Arizona, you got Utah, you got Idaho, you got little parts of Colorado, then you've got down in Columbia, you got places that the Mormons, the Mormon circuit there. It's very interesting, but nonetheless, there was nothing in this trial, and the state rested and the defense rested today, that leads me to think anything other than Kouri Richins is just a diabolical woman who got head over heels in her debt and could not dig herself out And she just knew that this was the only way out for her. And I would preface that by saying that her mental illness, her taking the Seroquel, perhaps kind of helped her along there. Both had brothers, Ronnie and Alex, okay? Lori's brother Alex, Kouri's brother Ronnie. And, there is no, there's no mistaking that Alex was a freaking nut job, a freaking killer of his own niece and nephew, helped kill Tammy, killed Charles for Lori. Okay, Ronnie, on the other hand, we'll get to him in that. Why didn't the defense call Ronnie? Why didn't the defense call Kouri's mother, Lisa Darden? Why? We'll discuss that and see what we come up with. Lori Vallow was held in jail for over 3 years before her trial. Kouri Richins had been in jail since May of 2023. And as of March of 2026, now let's stop, she has been incarcerated for nearly 3 years while awaiting trial. So, to me, I feel like that is something they have similar. Both committed financial fraud. Lori's been convicted of it, and in my opinion, Kouri Richins has been shown to be, in terms of insurance fraud and forgery, in this trial. We're not talking about the other trial that she's going to have to deal with financial crimes. She is going to be found guilty for this as well. And the question that I have about the defense resting today, and the fact that the state rested, but specifically the defense, is why was Kouri Richins buying pain medicine? Had that ever been answered in terms of defense? Because we know the state presented evidence showing why she was buying the pain medicine, why she wanted the stronger stuff. But there's something that's not going to be answered, and I'm ready to lay it on you right now, y'all. What happened to the pills she purchased after Eric's death? You ready for this hypothesis, this theory? I think, if you think about all the pills, she had 5 or 6 transactions of 15 to 30 pills, right? What happened to those pills? Folks, this is my opinion. I could be wrong. Kouri was giving those pills to her lover. After Eric was dead, she purchased some more. Unless you want to say Kouri herself was taking those pills. Now just stop and think about it. Why would she purchase pills after Eric died? She was purchasing them for her lover. There's been people that have talked to say that Josh Grossman had been an addict. And Kouri Richins, absolutely, she wasn't taking them herself. She was getting them for her lover, y'all. That's a theory that I have. Where are the text messages where Eric and Kouri are talking about getting pain medicine, getting pills? There were only 2 messages that alluded to the THC gummies. There was no evidence in this trial ever, not once, that even in a code or anything else, that Eric and Kouri were working together to get him pain medications. And y'all know the defense is saying that Eric Richins was abusing pain medication. That's what they were saying that he did. There was no evidence in any of the text messages. Get me some pills, Kouri, or Kouri, I got you these blues, or any of this stuff. Never said. Where are the texts on Ronnie's phone showing Eric talking about drugs? Remember when the defense attorney was cross-examining the lead investigator Driscoll? She tried to throw some reasonable doubt in there. Well, did y'all look to see? Did y'all look to see if perhaps that on Ronnie's phone where she was talking about walk the dog, that perhaps that was on there? Let me just tell you this right now. If there had been text messages from Kouri's brother about anything having to do with Eric having a drug problem, I guarantee you the defense would have talked about it in opening. They would have called Ronnie to the stand and they would have had him authenticate a text message. If Eric would have said, I do drugs or whatever the hell it was, it never happened, y'all. Why didn't Kouri's mother or brother testify? The defense was so quick to say that, Ronnie was over one, this is what the Kouri said, that Ronnie was over there one Sunday during a football game and Eric was talking about drug use and all that. Why not? Why not put Ronnie on the stand? I put on the community wall. I said, did the mother or the brother, I know the mother had been sitting in court about this, so I knew she wasn't going to be called. But I had the question, did Ronnie, was he sitting in the court? Because I was trying to figure out whether he was going to be called as a defense witness. Well, it seems to me that the defense decided not to put on a case at all, and the jurors are going to ask, wait a minute. When the defense attorney was cross-examining the lead investigator and asked all these questions, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and why didn't you look at Ronnie's phone and just to confirm what she was saying and walk the dog? They're going to understand. They're going to understand that that's just defense blowing smoke out their freaking ass, okay? Why not hear from Eric's Mexican hunting guide or the friends on the hunting trip in Mexico there? Kouri's talking about it in her walk the dog thing that he gets the drugs from Mexico and all that. Why couldn't the defense get a single person to come in there and say, yeah, I saw Eric popping pills or Eric got some pills for me or anything? Because it never happened, y'all. It never happened. Why can't Kouri testify and straighten all this out? Why can't she, y'all? If Kouri's mother and brother would have testified for the defense, then the prosecution had already cut them off at the knees by showing the walk the dog letter and the notebook entry, the orange notebook there of what Kouri said happened the night of Eric's death. Their testimony would have absolutely looked suspect had the defense called them. Because Kouri's involvement in the walk the dog letter, along with the notebook journal, look at the source. Look at the source of it. The defense did itself no favors at all, y'all, in the cross-examination of investigator Driscoll. Defense was trying to plant reasonable doubt by trying to bring out that the investigation didn't do this or that. And just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here and why the defense decided not to put on a defense, the defense asked Driscoll about whether there were messages on Kouri's brother's phone about Eric talking about drugs. Well, the defense knew that there wasn't no such thing at all. Don't you think the defense would have made that there dang, look, look. I guess the question is, couldn't the defense have gotten these so-called damning Eric drug use texts from the get-go themselves? They didn't have to have the state do it. If in fact there were messages from Eric that demonstrated this, why didn't the defense say anything in opening about it, and why didn't they call any witnesses, Ronnie or anyone else, to even put any seed or any kind of reasonable doubt? They couldn't find one person. One. You think the defense, if they could find one person outside of Kouri and her brother, Kouri's mother and brother, no one. Absolutely no one. Now, there was a witness from the state, and they did come out, and I forget their name, please forgive me, but you'll know who I'm talking about, where they had brought up that one time they thought that Eric had put drugs in Kouri's bag going to Hawaii. And Driscoll said, well, there was no other time or anything like that. The defense couldn't even bring someone in to reemphasize that or nothing. If Kouri's brother really did hear Eric talking about drugs on football Sunday, just as it was explained in Kouri's Walk the Dog letter, why didn't the brother talk to investigators about it? Why is it that the lead investigator said in his answer he wouldn't talk to us? Don't you think Ronnie should have come forward from the get-go and said, yes, he had talked to me about this? If he testified and said this, then, what would happen? If Ronnie would have got on the stand for the defense and said, yes, one Sunday, just as Kouri had put in Walk the Dog, that he had talked about it and all that, first of all, the jury was left with, wait a minute, Kouri is got the narrative going. She's telling, take notes, make it short and sweet and all that. Let's get past that. Let's say that Kouri really wanted to remind Ronnie of something that he told her long ago or something like that. The fact of the matter is it didn't happen. And the jury's got to be left with that. Why would Ronnie wait so long to get on the stand for the defense to retell the story of a Sunday football game where Eric was talking about drugs? Don't you think that the jury would be like, wow, he's waited all this time and here's his story now, and we got Walk the Dog? Wow, this is very interesting. It's a little suspect to me. Why wouldn't Kouri's family come out with this when Kouri was arrested? Why wouldn't they talk to the investigators? But here is the question, y'all. After the fence crossed Driscoll, trying to plant reasonable doubt by alluding to Eric being a drug user, will the jury want the defense to show evidence of their insinuations about Eric? And yes, they would. They would want someone to back that up. It's called corroboration. But guess what? The jury's been told that they go home till Monday. There is no defense. There are no witnesses. For everything those defense attorneys brought up to try to knock any of these witnesses off, to try to say that Eric Richins was a drug user, or this or that, or up and down and all around, they have no one can go on the stand. And they sure as hell ain't got Kouri Richins going on the stand, do they? Oh, this innocent woman, right? In my view, I was like, wow. If Kouri Richins, this was before he found out today, I was like, she could go on the stand, she'd line it all up with her Walk the Dog, her journal entry, the orange notebook. She would say, Eric, we tried not to let anybody know. I was getting them for Eric, And we just kept it hush hush. We didn't want anyone to know anything, absolutely anything. But as we know, when the defense tried to take charges away today, the judge said there was enough there. And that's when the defense should have kicked in and at least called some witness, an expert on drug overdose or something. If they weren't going to call Kouri, they needed to call someone to corroborate what the defense were saying in their questions to the state's witnesses. Because they weren't just asking questions to the state's witnesses, they were, in fact, in my opinion, they were testifying the defense attorneys were in some way alluding to the jury that Eric was taking these drugs. To the poison sandwich, all right, which is one of the charges, attempted murder. The poison sandwich maker testified in the trial, we remember that, about what was on the sandwich and Kouri and all this and that. Geolocation was used where the day Kouri left the sandwich with Eric Richins. Why on the recordings when Kouri was talking with her mother and then at one point with her brother Ronnie, was they sitting there laughing going, this is so stupid, this is so stupid, this is full of shit, whatever. But she did say that they ate together, and they didn't eat together, when she obviously left the sandwich and traveled to meet her lover, Josh Grossman. That in and of itself should get her convicted on attempted murder. Did she say that? Did she say they ate together? She did. Does it matter whether Eric's location was ascertained? The defense tried to bring this out in questioning of the lead investigator Driscoll. Does it matter whether they looked at Eric's geolocation as opposed to Kouri Richins? Well, Eric Richins wasn't the one on trial, but folks, his texts say it all. When he got sick, he went home. He had to lay down and all of that while Kouri was going to meet her damn lover, okay? Location of whether Eric was the one who picked up the pills at the burn pit. This again is the defense attorney trying to talk to the lead investigator saying, well, did you look to see if Eric Richins was the one that went to that location to pick up the pills from Carmen Lauber had left? They already showed, y'all. They already showed that Kouri had been there. So, to throw these red herrings out here and all this and that, I get they're trying to do what they're doing. And you and I both know that, the defense needs to give the best defense they possibly can give so that they get a fair trial. Due process under the law. No ineffective assistance of counsel, right? And I think the defense has done everything that they possibly can do. And by the way, that is why Sky Lazaro didn't want to continue to represent Kouri, because she is so full of shit, okay? Kouri is so evil and diabolical in the whole situation. And the notebook journal. Y'all think the jury is aware of Kouri's affair when they listen and see what she wrote in her journal, that orange notebook? They already know, it's been established. She was screwing Josh Grossman, telling him she wanted a future with him. They never ascertained when she wrote the journal entry, but she had already been in the relationship with Josh Grossman, so it covers it. So with that information and fact that Kouri was in an affair with Josh Grossman, and she writes this, what happened the night before Eric died and into the morning and all this other bullshit. Just think about that. Just think about that. Let's go through that journal, word for word, and apply it to the evidence of the affair. Okay, let me repeat that. Let's go through that journal entry of what happened, she says. Let's go through it. Let's look at it and see what really, how it all, disingenuous, really. Let's look at the glaring discrepancies, okay? And these are just ones that I see. You might see something totally different. You could agree, disagree, whatever. Thursday, March 3rd of 2022. We are getting into the journal now. The day started out as a typical day. Ashton had a dentist appointment that morning to get a filling put in for his cavity. After the dentist, we headed back home, so Ashton could stay home with Bailey while I went to do my weekly volunteering at the school. That afternoon and evening, I made dinner and we all ate as usual and ended the night like any other evening. And just let's keep in mind that she has texted Josh Grossman that day and that evening, okay? So for her to write this down in her mind, in my view, the evidence shows she wrote this down to remind herself of how she was going to remember it without the fact that she was screwing another man, okay? Around 8:30, I read the kids' books, and about 9, they all climbed into bed. Eric had been on his phone most of the evening talking with a hunting guide from Mexico and a few other people trying to get his horns back to the USA. Around 9 to 9:15 p.m., he was screaming mad at the guys, and he threw the phone. At that point, he said, "Let's go have a celebration drink." The following day, I was closing on a huge investment home in Midway. I've been working on that deal for 4 months, and closing day was finally here, and Eric and I were going to toast for the closing. We went into the kitchen and both started grabbing ingredients for a Moscow Mule and a lemon drop shot. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember it that she made him a drink and brought it into the bedroom. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it came out differently. Kenny James says Nestor showed her methods and they sent her around making everything confusing and nitpicking. So that's what I remember. Now she's saying in her journal that they made them together. He was going on and on about the guys in Mexico and was so mad about the entire situation. We finished talking, made our way back to our room, and brushed our teeth. As we both climbed into bed, we could hear Ashton moaning and tossing and turning. Folks, I don't know how far their bedroom was. I could see that maybe they could hear their child moaning, but how do you hear someone tossing and turning? I don't know. But that's just a little thing there. Into bed, we could hear Ashton moaning and tossing and turning. He was having nightmares again. I told Eric I would go sleep with him and try to calm him down. We kissed, said I love you, and good night, and I went to Ashton's room and laid with him. 30 minutes later, I could hear Eric snoring, and I finally fell asleep. Now, let's just stop there for a minute. We kissed, said I love you, and good night. Did she tell Josh Grossman? What did she tell him? I mean, she's already made the arrangements for them to go on a trip, and if he wasn't around and all this other stuff, she's still making Eric believe that she loves him and all of this. That's what I see. And this whole thing, 30 minutes later, I could hear Eric snoring, and I finally fell asleep. So, again, this goes back to where the rooms were. She could hear Eric snoring. My husband snores. I turn him on his side, and he stops snoring. That's just a little something to think about. But that morning on March 4th at 3:48 a.m., she's wrote this in her journal. She knows it was 3:48 a.m., y'all. Not 3:40, not 3:47 or 3:49. It was 3:48, y'all. Give me a break. I woke up from sleeping with Ashton and went to crawl back into bed. It was dark and awkwardly quiet. Eric snores more times than not, so I thought that was weird. I didn't hear anything, and I crawled into bed and went on Eric's side of the bed and put my arm over him. He was cold, so I pulled the blanket up on him, but his body just felt so strange to me. It was heavy. It's the only word I can think to describe it, so I nudged him and said, "Eric, Eric." Nothing. I kept nudging him and just remember the stiffness of his body. I jumped out of bed and I ran and turned the lights on. He was pale, yellow, mouth open. An urge came over me that this was not good. I grabbed my phone and called 911, which is not showing in the evidence, y'all. It showed her not, there were steps taken through after they went to bed and all this other stuff. All of that was left out. The defense tried to bring up that maybe Eric grabbed Kouri's phone, and that's why it showed the steps or something like that. Give me a break, y'all. I ran up to Eric to see if he was breathing or had a pulse, but he didn't. Panic had sunk in as I was talking to dispatch. She had me pull Eric to the floor to do CPR. As much as I didn't want him basically falling on the ground, I pulled him as hard as I could to get him down and begin CPR. Compressions until EMT arrived. This woman is sitting there in her journal saying she didn't want him to fall hard or nothing. She just damn murdered his ass with freaking fentanyl. That's what she did. Took over when she talked about until EMTs arrived, getting out the defibrillator and started compressions. The worst part of all of it was when they were pumping his lungs and blood went everywhere. It's like on replay in my head, and it won't go away, and I hope it never goes away for that damn woman. She murdered her husband so she could get a freaking windfall on some life insurance to bail her ass out of some debt. Screaming at the EMTs that they weren't doing it right. He shouldn't be bleeding. How would I know? I really know what is right. How would I know what is really right and what is wrong? There was never any evidence in any of those, the testimony of the EMTs or anything in the videos where it showed her there or anything like that that showed what she's about to say now. I screamed, cried, and just sat in the corner of the room by my dresser, rocking back and forth, hoping and praying this was a dream, fading in and out of the moment, hoping to go back to the night before, where we were laughing, kissing, and saying goodnight. There it is, laughing, kissing, and saying goodnight. From the evidence that was presented by the state of Utah there, she was having an affair. So you cannot, there's no way that in my mind that is sincere, laughing, kissing, and saying goodnight. And by the way, didn't she just say earlier in the journal that Eric was on the phone the whole time and he was bitching and complaining with people about getting his horns back and all that? That's what he was doing. But they're laughing and kissing and saying goodnight. Give me a break, y'all. The EMT finally asked me to leave the room. He could see I was visibly upset and couldn't function. He took me to the living room and had me sit down. I couldn't. I paced back and forth until an officer came out and asked if there was someone I would like to call. I called my mom back to back until she finally picked up. I told her to come quick. The ambulance was here. Something is wrong with Eric. I was upset and crying still. I hung up and still paced back and forth, until I finally dropped to my knees, praying that this wasn't happening. At that point, the head EMT walked in to tell me he didn't make it. We did what we could. I lost it. I immediately ran to the bathroom and began throwing up. During all of this, my kids had woken up and I had quickly yelled for them to stay in the room. And let me just stop there. How many times in the crime genre community, when someone murders somebody, that I've seen it, I don't know about y'all, where these people, they realize they've murdered somebody, and what do? They throw up. They just do. It's just an adrenaline thing that takes over, and they throw up. The kids had woken up and I had quickly yelled for them to stay in their room. They knew something was up. They saw the ambulance and cop cars for what seemed like hours at this point. I could feel their fear through the walls. Well, if she really did feel their fear through the walls, she created it. She did it. She took their father away from them. And she's going to have to live with that the rest of her life. What she did, she traumatized her own children just so she could get some freaking insurance money and she could let this Josh Grossman go on a trip with her and they can live happily ever after. Up around the toilet when my mom walked in with the EMT lady. I could tell she had no words and just rubbed my back. And just stop and think about that. She's recalling this. She's right. We don't know when she wrote this. But think about what she remembers. Everything she's putting in here makes her look like, oh, the victim, the victim, the victim. Think about what she could say anything. She could say, I just don't remember. I just remember, maybe I was in the bathroom. Or, no, she wants to embellish. She wants to talk about that, right? She just started to say, Kouri talking about her mother. She just started to say what happened, what happened, what happened. I had no answer for her. I had no idea. We said, love you, good night. I went to sleep with Ashton and that was it. Just didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense because she absolutely murdered Eric Richins. Anytime anyone, as far as I can remember on any trial, when it doesn't make sense, there's a reason for it, folks. I told them EMTs I needed to call my father-in-law. Well, let me back up. I had no answers, no idea, talking about her mother when her mother asked. I went to sleep with Ashton and that was it. Just didn't make any sense. I told them EMTs I need to call my father-in-law. They found my phone for me and I did. I just said something was wrong with Eric and he needed to come over quick. I told him the ambulance was here, but he wasn't breathing. Now this right here, y'all, when I talk about the Mormon thing, and I'm not talking about Kouri being Mormon. I'm just talking about this because, y'all, these are just my opinions. There's some evil shit going on, y'all, in the Mormon community. I'm sorry. It's just the way I feel about it. I'm not saying all of them. But there is something not right, in my opinion. And maybe that's so in all religions. I don't know. But this right here really stuck with me, and I want you to listen to me. It was about when I called Gene, the father-in-law, Eric's father. He sounded so perky on the hello when he answered, almost like he was expecting my call. It was very strange. And to me, y'all, this Gene, the father of Eric Richins, he had some aura about him that was able to be imparted to Kouri. These are just my opinions, where she couldn't help herself. Of all the things that she could have said, she said this, and that is, almost like he was expecting my call. It was very strange. It's almost like some kind of entity let Kouri know that they knew that she murdered Eric Richins. And I know that's far fetched, but just think about that. Let me repeat it. The odd thing about when I called Eric Richins' father, he sounded so perky on the hello when he answered, almost like he was expecting my call. It was very strange. And it was almost like Kouri Richins couldn't help herself from adding that. There couldn't be no other understanding of that in my view, other than to say, what is she trying to say? That Eric Richins' father knew that something terrible had happened to his son? I mean, come on, y'all. 62, I don't know. I know that when you say was Kouri a Mormon, I thought so. I don't think, like I said earlier, there was nothing in this trial that was brought out about that. But I do know that Eric was raised in a Mormon home, but they didn't live like that. And this goes back to people talking about it and all of that. Where is that? Hold on, I want to share something with y'all. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Hold on just a minute. My apologies, y'all. But Kathy Barella had said this about Kouri in another instance, talking about all I have to say is you live what you learn. Sounds like Kouri's mom and father were living their lives chaotically. Her father a drunk and a mother a gambler who raised Kouri and her brother Ronnie in casino hotel rooms. Now, these are comments. I'm not here to say this is fact, but this does shed light if in fact this is true. I know you were asking about was Kouri Mormon or not. There's a rumor saying that when Kouri's older sister raised Kouri and Ronnie the other part of the time when Kouri's mom was at work. She left once she turned 18 and never looked back and never reconnected with the family. So I don't think Kouri had a great upbringing, just my opinion. I feel for the children. It appears Kouri was so busy with her career and affair that she feared the boys would choose Eric over her if they divorced, because of the lifestyle that he provided. It sounds like Eric was involved with the boys, sports activities, and taking them to his parents' ranch to let them run out some of their rambunctiousness, you know, how much energy boys have. And again, I heard through comments that they went to church every Sunday, but it was never brought out in the trial, and so I can't sit here and say that they went to a Mormon church or not. I just don't know. Oh. So sad that they lost both mom and dad. This has to have some kind of effect on their lives, talking about Kouri and Eric's children. I pray for the boys and the Richins family. I just don't understand why so many people go the way of causing such harm and not think about the consequences. So many lives change for no good reason. So that's all. I mean, I haven't gotten anyone on this channel that has confirmed to me 100% that they were living a Mormon life at all. I know they lived in Utah. I know Eric Richins was raised Mormon, but it just never was established. Finally, Mark McGarry, and he communicates the way he does, and I get it, but some people don't. He says a comparative view as base jump activity. high fatality rate. So more coward than true adrenaline thrill, but craving risk. At the semi-wealth high-end Park City, it seems like the individuals are lazy, wanting a thrill, but sort of bankrupt in every self-improvement. No investment as to develop a talent. Fill out loan forms and tire to forgery? Just casual moral turpitude that led to femme toxicology dose to husband. Kouri as a soul, abrupt to decency, invested to betrayal. Sort of a parallel to the Dave L. Vallow. To explore Kouri is to explore themes of isolation and morality. And, as the evidence suggests, a delivery of homicide by poison as a fentanyl-happy juice. To fully grasp immersive agony past servience, I cite the state of being servient, often implying subservience, submissiveness, or the legal condition of an estate subject to a burden. It generally means being subject to a person or things that controls or rules. Kouri twisting in a deficit and left behind. Willing to risk life baselines. Driven, or the question, was that a lifelong natural bent to embedded evil? Maybe with a shaded regret by the children's book. Daddy is gone, but still real. Daddy homicide as to repay brutality, or self-goal set as a novel new money by proxy. In the end, it's the kids who lost, lawyers who won, a beehive state female prison population to scale one head count larger. Predicted. Emerged from a Mormon abject mosh pit as gutter sleaze akin to a Roman body stiletto. It's ugly. And the reason that I read these comments, especially Mark McGarry, is because whatever comes out of this mouth, whatever comes out of your mouth as I repeat them in your comments, I have faith that you are the only you're ever going to be, and you might take just a tiny little word out of that and come to some kind of shift in your quest to get justice through understanding. The bottom line is this, y'all. Kouri Richins didn't testify. Her brother didn't testify. Her mother didn't testify. No one came to the defense of Kouri Richins who could say that Eric Richins was abusing pain pills or anything of the sort. And the jury is left with those questions that the defense has asked in cross-examination that eluded or tried to give reasonable doubt in their questioning to the state's witnesses and say, wait a minute, the defense never opened their opening statement by saying, we're going to show you that Ronnie had this on his phone. We're going to show you this. We're going to show you that. All of those things that the defense attorney tried to do on cross-examination of the state's witnesses to try to put that reasonable doubt there. The bottom line is the closing arguments. And the state is going to be absolutely able to say, why? Why didn't Kouri's family come and testify? Why? Didn't anyone come in here to say, yes, Eric Richins bought these pills from me. Eric Richins talked about these pills on a Sunday football game day or anything. That's what we're left with, y'all. So leave your comments. Let me know what you think. We're going to get a guilty verdict, in my opinion. And Kouri Richins, she cannot say ineffective assistance of counsel. If she's so damn innocent, she could have at least put on a defense. She didn't have to testify herself. I don't recommend anyone who's on trial for murder and attempted murder to go on the stand. I don't. But but there is no defense witnesses. There's no experts. That the defense was stupid not to bring in to muddy the waters at least to say, yeah, there are people that get a hold of pills that they think are prescription and they end up being street grade and they have fentanyl in it because they press them together. They put the markings on them, make them look like prescription. And here's the statistics of all these people that have died from fentanyl overdoses because they didn't know it was fentanyl or anything like that. It is absolutely unconscionable that the defense wouldn't bring in an expert. But then again, that would have opened the door for the state to ask questions about, okay, so you're an expert on people that overdose on fentanyl and all this stuff. Why in the world, can you tell me was there any signs? Eric Richins was a successful masonry company man. He went to work every day. Don't people that abuse these drugs, don't they freaking, not do their shit and all this and that? And then again, y'all, Kouri Richins bought pills after Eric had passed. She was giving them to her lover. That's what, and it was never brought out, but he knows, and that's what I believe. There ain't no, speculation on my part, unless you want to believe that Kouri Richins herself was taking all of those. Because if you want to believe that the 15 to 30, the 4 or 5 times, that's over 100 pills, where did they all go? Who was taking them? And if Eric Richins was taking them all that time that she was getting them for Carmen Lauber, he sure wasn't acting like anyone who was abusing drugs. But a man who would get involved with a married woman who's living in a house that's being supplied by his lover, who's driving a vehicle that she is supplying, and who has been known to be an addict in the past, I can put 2 and 2 together. So leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I love you all. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it. And as always, keep on looking.